Welcome to Content Disrupted, bold takes on brand marketing. I'm your host, Dan Baptiste, and together we'll explore what it takes to excel in brand marketing at one of the most exciting and disruptive times in industry history. Welcome to Content Disrupted. Joining us today is Kevin Miller, an award-winning three-time CMO, most recently responsible for the rapid rise and transformation of Fresh Market. I'm excited to talk to Kevin about brand love and our relationships with our customers. This should have been our Valentine's Day episode, Kevin. We completely missed the mark here, but hey, we're still here, right? And in a world that is increasingly synthesized, homogenized, AKA boring, creating unique experiences with our audiences are more important than ever. But as we look around, we have less people, more AI, massive revenue pressure, and lots of easy buttons, which makes it super tempting to promote ourselves and our content instead of creating anything new and special for our customers. So as we look around, how do we reimagine brand love and customer obsession in today's environment? We'll dig into this topic today with Kevin. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much, Dan. Thrilled to be here. And I love your enthusiasm, your smile.
Yeah.
Great subject. We're about to engage with. So I'm thrilled that how honored that you asked me to be here.
You either smile or cry. And today I'm choosing smile, which hopefully you are as well. But before we get into Fresh Market, Kevin, as you know, I've gotten to know you a little bit. I've been really impressed with how you've really prioritized the customer relationship and creating like a deep affinity between brands and people. So my first question is, how did you kind of go down that path? Did you have any careers or mentors or experiences that kind of prompted you to prioritize that in how you approach the market?
Sure. So I started off my marketing and advertising career in the mid 80s at Leo Burnett Advertising in Chicago, one of the world's greatest ad agencies, known for looking for deep insights and ideas. And I was fortunate enough to work on the national McDonald's business and start off my career in retail. And retail is about, people, the interaction of customers and employees at the point of sale, your ability to communicate as a retailer, your competition has a lot of the same or exact same products that you have to sell. So you differentiate, most importantly, your brand with, how you are providing an experience. The experience is as important as the product and the service you provide to your customers. And that experience has to be one of joy and anticipation. And you build that through creating relationships with your customers at every touch point. In the store, in the advertising, in the customer service experience. And so it's about the human connection. There's the best place to start. And then you're able to leverage the platforms and the tools in order to deliver against that experience. And as you just stated, the tools are changing. Right? It used to be TV, radio, and print.
Yeah. Remember those days?
Oh, yes. And now there's AI. So I think there's a lot of value for those of us who did start off with those tools without the AI, and then using those principles and those strategies and that approach to really be able to maximize the opportunities that AI presents.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really important point there, which is while this world feels new and overwhelming with all the change, there's benefit in experience, right? And you start to think of any of these tools are built to scale expertise or solve problems. So, starting to say like, okay, as a leader, maybe I am starting to learn how these things work or starting to explore this world, but really understanding that the value that you bring or I bring to the table is decades of experience that allow us to understand customers, solve problems, build relationships. And these tools can help accelerate that if we understand how to deploy them and use them in the right way. I want to hit back on another area of your background. So I saw that you were at ABC Radio in the early 2000s for about 10 years. I was actually at CBS Radio during the same time period. Yeah, I swear. And so it's good we didn't meet back then. There would be like an anchorman type situation.
In the alley.
Yeah, we're meeting in the alley for sure. But for me, getting into the content marketing space with a radio background was really interesting, right? Because you're starting, your product is how do I the same concept. You're
Yeah.
playing music, or, you're creating content in a way, but you're trying to build community and brand and connect with people over the airways. And, at that time, digital was kind of popping up in physical events. So I was wondering, is there any lessons in this like audience build aspect from your radio days that you apply today as well?
Sure. Radio is a very intimate, especially talk radio, but
Yeah.
even pop radio, or depending on the format, you find an audience. Again, you find an audience and what consumer need or you're trying to solve. And for that audience, you need to be able to provide them with the, high quality content that, attracts their attention, that keeps them engaged and keeps them involved, and where it feels personal to them. And I think that's one of the towering strengths of radio is that the talent, the disc jockeys, the really good ones had the ability to make the audience feel like they were talking to them individually and not to millions of other people. And so the Hall of Famers like the Howard Sterns and the Paul Harveys and the Tom Joyners and the Steve Harveys, when you hear them on the radio, you feel like you have, again, a personal relationship with that person and that they understand you, they can relate to you, and that they're part of your family or your community. And so how do you replicate that type of relationship in other spaces other than over the airways? Well, how do you do it at the point of sale? How do you do it on social? And then importantly, as we become more digital, in email
Mhm.
or on a text message or on a social DM, just as important to communicate your ability to tell your story and create a one-to-one personal relationship, no matter what the touch point is with your customer. And that's a key learning from radio. That's the power. That's the secret power of radio.
Yeah, yeah, and I think too,
The
this
superpower, actually.
total superpower is, to your point, you listen, and there, especially if you have headphones or something in, and it's intimate. You're feeling like that
The
human
power of
can.
Podcasting now.
Yeah,
That's what allowed Joe Rogan to be as powerful as he is.
exactly, exactly. And the idea that you can build audience versus just pay to interrupt someone else's audience too. I think in the past, in our days, we were the arbiter of that, right? Like we had the audiences, and as a brand, you could borrow that audience if you bought an ad. And in some cases, it was fun and interesting. In other cases, you were interrupting content and you were an annoyance, and somebody clicked the channel. But if you as a brand position yourselves as the content provider, the radio station, and then start to think of it from a programming standpoint, how do I get people to come to me consistently? Why would they want to spend time with me? So starting to think of some of those concepts and how they present are really important as we think about relationship building and brand love and affinity, because, the idea is not how do I smash my message in front of more people so they buy from me. It's no, how do I build that intimate relationship that you discussed in, through the brand and content and the customer experience and all those things. So thought that was interesting, as, it's certainly influenced how I approach and help brands. And it's seemingly that DNA is showing up in your career as well.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about Fresh Market, because I think, the story is really cool. But if we hop back to the genesis, like what was the state of the business when you took over as CMO, and what was the mission?
Yeah. So when I took over as CMO in May of 2020, the brand was in pretty bad shape. We had a little bit of the history of the Fresh Market. It was founded in 1982 by Ray Berry, an ex 7-Eleven executive who often went to Europe with his wife to vacation. They discovered the European open air fresh markets and wanted to bring that type of grocery shopping experience to the US. Now, in the early 80s, that was the explosion of the superstores, the Walmart
Yeah.
superstores and the Costco. So they actually zigged what everybody else was zagging and made it more fresh and more intimate, and really focused on the highest quality, best tasting food to make everyday eating extraordinary. And for a 35-year period, the business did very well, to the point where it actually went public in the early 2000s. Everything was going great until, the executive team, the original owners, founders, retired and put in some traditional grocers as as the lead, running the company as the SLT. Right around 2016, 2017, with the growth of Whole Foods, expansion of Whole Foods into the Southeast, which was the primary trade area for the fresh market, companies like Sprouts, then market share started to decline, sales declined, traffic declined, net promoter scores were declining. The company had lost its way and it started to chase after things that weren't key to its core value proposition and really began to sell a lot of CPG products, toilet paper, things like that. And ultimately, we hit rock bottom in 2019. After a series of executive team changes, we were actually rated by Glassdoor as the worst company in America to work for. Not worst grocer, but the overall number one.
Man, that's not a trophy you want, Kevin. Yeah.
To work for.
That is not the trophy on the shelf that you want. Yeah.
And so at that point, we were owned by Apollo Global, private equity.
Yep.
They had put in like that third executive team, fired their third executive team. Of course, the private equity teams want exit. And they brought in this brilliant young exec by the name of Jason Potter, who was a top executive at Sobeys in Canada, a turnaround artist. They brought him in early February, right before the pandemic. I was his first hire. I was the CMO of Natural Grocers out in Denver, Colorado. And he had a vision for the turnaround. His vision was to make the worst company in America to work for, the fresh market. His vision was to become America's most loved brand. And so as he recruited me and we began to speak, I was stunned that this really top-notch operator focused the turnaround of the business on two important things. One, brand, and understand that the brand is your moat. And two, on brand love, which is, again, a people-based, real human connection to your customers. And I thought to myself, oh my goodness, if I've got a strategic alignment with this guy, we could do some really, really good things. And so he had a strategic framework for the company in terms of how we wanted to define the experience. And that was to create a experience where, there would be joy and anticipation. When you thought about coming to the fresh market, it would be like, hey, not a drudgery of having to shop at an overcrowded grocery store full of bright fluorescent lights and kids and shopping carts, but be, for you, a daily visit to your Walt Disney World, a place where you can discover foods that you can't find anywhere else, that you would discover products that came from other countries, all brought to you under one roof, which was the fresh market, to create a discovery, a treasure hunt type of shopping experience. And then we didn't want to be everything to everybody. We had three key shopping experiences shopping occasions that we wanted to solve. And those were the place to be or come to get your fresh food. And fresh was the important aspect because we were the fresh market. And that meant daily shops, right? You weren't not frozen food, but where you get your fresh food. Two, the place to go to solve what's for dinner tonight.
That's the worst question, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah. It's only worse than what do you want to watch?
On planet Earth.
Yeah.
The number one problem everyone has every day.
Mm-hmm.
Around 2 or 3 o'clock, no matter what country you live on, moms are saying, what the hell am I going to have for dinner tonight to feed this family?
Yeah.
It's an enormous problem. And so we were going to be the place that you went to first to solve what's for dinner because of our terrific assortment of the best tasting, highest quality, fresh food that would be easy to prepare, easy to cook, easy to clean up, and affordable. And then finally, special occasions. So those really special occasions, again, going back to humanity, Christmas dinner, Thanksgiving dinner, Valentine's Day, Easter, all graduations, all these things that you just can't mess up when you have your most important friends and your family members together. You can depend and trust that the Fresh Market will be your partner and deliver the best tasting meal, but importantly, the most rewarding eating experience with your family and friends. So with that as a foundation, we took to the streets, and the first place you start as a marketer, you have two very important assets you're responsible for a company, and that is the health of the brand and the voice of the customer. And a company relies on you to deliver against both those propositions. And so with those strategic foundations and with the vision of becoming America's most loved brands, we talked to our customers and we understood who our current customers were and who our competitive customers were and how we could fit their needs to solve those three key use occasions. And we built from there.
How did you go about that? So if you're looking at, obviously there's quantitative and qualitative, like did you find anything particularly helpful as you were trying to take this like really like distressed asset? It was a loved company and now it's really like almost unrecognizable because it's been through the grinder so much, right?
Yeah.
So what did you find was helpful in trying to like really speak to people, observe tactics, look at the competitive landscape? What did you do and what worked?
Unfortunately, there's no silver bullet. There's no one thing you can do to answer those questions. So you have to do it all, and we did it all. So we had an ongoing customer survey from SMG. It's basically the questions about product quality and friendliness and wait times and all those things that you fill out when you get your receipt at the cash register. So we knew a lot about what our customers were telling us about our service and our product and our quality. And that data was there. And not a whole lot of people were using it other than the operators. The marketers wasn't really using it. But in addition to that, they had never done any kind of brand tracking research. And so I started with the premise that if the CEO wanted us to become one of America's most loved brands, then we had to quantify that with actual data and make that database. And Morning Consult, one of the top research firms in the U.S., had a annual brand tracking where it tracked brand love, America's most loved brands. And so we, retained them. We put together a metric of the key measurements that would equate to us being ranked as one of America's most loved brands. And that was measuring not only our net promoter score, but our friendliness score, community impact score. There was one other score. And so we created a metric that we talked to the board and the executive teams about and reported on every month and how we were doing with our America's Most Loved Brand Index. So we were able to measure and track. That survey completed over 200 surveys every day. So it was very robust, very high end score. So that was one thing that we added. We additionally retained a consulting firm called Global Logic, which later became Method. They're one of the leading experiential research consulting firms who specialized in developing a consumer journey that bridged retail, brick and mortar with digital experiences and to craft those experiences. So we retained them and got them going on really understanding what the pain points were both in the brick and mortar shopping experience as well as the retail shopping experience. We tasked them at that point in time. Curbside pickup was becoming a huge growth and need because of COVID. We had a terrible curbside experience at the Fresh Market. And so we re-engineered the entire curbside experience from the ground up using the folks at Global Logic Method and relaunched over a 3 or 4 month period and relaunched our program with new features and services. We even created an experience during the holidays where all our curbside employees came out dressed as Santa Claus.
I'm sure they love that.
We gave the kids
Like, really, Kevin? Santa?
Yes, we had Santa Claus at the curbside. Again, the experience making it special.
Yeah.
For the kid. And so this shares it, and then they were able to give the kids in the car candies and water,
That's awesome.
and they signed a card indicating that they had double and triple checked your orders right there, it was free. And we launched a program, and we branded our curbside service as the friendliest curbside experience in America. And for that, we were awarded by Winsight Grocer as one of the top 10 retail innovations of the year in 2021. And so it's the detail of understanding the vision, the brand, the customer experience, and then delivering against, a very defined experience that we wanted to provide our customers at every touch point. Again, joy and anticipation, trust, and delivering against the key use occasions of fresh food, special occasions, and what's for dinner.
As you look at, you mentioned Whole Foods, kind of creeping into your territory, like, arguably they helped create in a more mass market discovery experience and had that sort of passionate following. They come in your backyard, but they also get acquired by Amazon, right? So you now had this like passion brand that is owned by corporate America, right? So one, did Whole Foods position influence how you thought about your position, or did you just totally operate independently based on this concept of joy and anticipation? And two, did the acquisition of of Whole Foods to Amazon open a door for you to reestablish the passion brand? You could kind of drift off of the mass market energy that
Yeah.
they've created and kind of recapture that for yourself.
Yeah. So Whole Foods was acquired by Amazon in 2017. I was the CMO of Natural Grocers when that happened. We were concerned. They stuck to their knitting. We stuck to our knitting out there, and we were able to not lose much share to them as well. Because that was really health. We really focused on health and organics out there. We studied, again, when I say the research and how do we really try to understand what we need to do to turn the business around, we commissioned separate research to analyze our position versus Whole Foods and Sprouts and the competition. So we had a very detailed roadmap on where we did better than Whole Foods and where they did better than us. And we did better than them for fresh meat and seafood, which is most grocery stores, consumers shop. Their primary reason for choosing grocery store is the produce section. For the fresh market, our shining, towering strength is our fresh meats and seafood. And so, and then there were some wins as far as service and other areas. There were some regional differences in terms of where they did a little bit better than us. But we had a real good understanding of our position versus Whole Foods. None of that, by the way, created a need or feeling that we need to change dramatically to try to go directly against Whole Foods. And that we really were, with the changes we were making, we were seeing our metrics go up. So our value scores were going up. Our net promoter scores were going up. And so we knew we were on the right path. So we decided to stick what was going, that was working. Incredibly, 1 year after we had started down this path, we were voted the best grocery store in America in the USA Today Reader's
Take
Choice.
that, Whole Foods.
Whole Foods didn't even come close.
Yeah.
So we were the classic worst to first story.
Yeah.
As Ricky Bobby would say, if you ain't first, you're last.
You laugh. That's amazing.
So we stuck to, Publix also competes with us pretty closely in our trade areas.
Yeah, I mean, it's a question, right? Like, so as marketing leaders, part of it is focusing on your customer and who you are, what makes you unique and special to craft, what is the market position that's, really valuable, and where do we have the right to play? And, can we double and triple down on those areas instead of using your competitors to define who you are? Obviously you want to know, like, hey, are they creeping into our lane, or where are we competing head to head versus what makes us unique and special, and why does that matter, and all that stuff. But
what's important, Brad, is to have tracking research, tracking data. So you don't want to go 3 or 4 or 5 months and be off track and not know it.
yeah,
So you track your sales every day. We keep tracking your brand measurement and your customer data equally on daily, weekly basis and know if you're going in the right direction or wrong direction. That's very important.
Yeah, I also think, part of this is, really defining who you are and what your voice is. And it kind of gets back to your initial comment around the company losing its way. And when did it lose its way? It lost its way when it was just trying to be a commoditized grocer like everyone else versus saying, how do we start to, instead of just focusing on the merits of our product or like, can we just be everything to everyone? No, we have to figure out how and why we're unique and special. And, part of that is finding that voice, right? So once you get through those insights, now we have to bring it to market. And that can be a challenge. And I think that increasingly gets lost in this world today, which is like, can a robot write a blog post and I can, end my day early? Instead, it's like, hey, there's a soul to this that
There
matters,
is.
right? Like, why would
The answer
someone
to
come to
that
this?
is yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the answer is everybody talks AI. So I'll let you
Yeah.
get back to your question. But I think we should ground the conversation as we move forward with the definition of AI so people know what we're all talking about when you talk about AI. And AI is the science of teaching machines. I say again, the science of teaching machines to learn human-like capabilities. So you got to teach the machines in order for them to learn the type of human-like capabilities you wanted to produce as an outcome. And when you're able to do that, then those machines are very, very smart. Those large language models or have infinitesimal capabilities to learn. But you have to be, as the brand marketer, the one teaching these things we've been talking about, the insights, the tone, the personality, the brand. You have to teach the machine in order for it to learn and then be able to produce the human-like capabilities.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue not only do you have to get in and figure out how to leverage the tech in the right way that you're describing, like what am I hoping to get out of this, but it's also what am I putting in, right? Like, as I'm thinking of what do I have to say that's unique and
That's
special?
what I mean by
Yeah,
teach.
yeah. And, I think AI will take information that exists and kind of make it sound like a human being, not unlike as we're all looking at generative AI and trying to create versions of it that sound like us or behave like us. But it's at the end of the day, it's what are we saying and why is it unique and valuable? And then can we use these tools to scale the messages, which is really important. And it kind of forces us to get back to the roots that we talked about, which is,
Yep.
what, why us? Like, are we just creating generic slop that they can get anywhere? Or do I have a market position that I'm trying to create? And what role can technology and AI and in synthesis of data and brand tracking, all this stuff that was manual and a pain in the ass and slough can
Yeah.
now be like fast, automated, real time. And then as experts, what do we do? Right? Like, can we build on top of that? Can we double and triple down on the brand position we're trying to create? And it forces us to then say, gosh, like I have not only the space, but the imperative to figure out why I have something that's unique and valuable to say. And what is it? And I think to
Yep.
that point, I saw you had created a magazine. And
Yes.
I think the forcing function of a magazine is really interesting. And I used to give this analogy to brands all the time, which is like, hey, imagine you're creating a magazine, so you get
Oh,
your
wow.
head out of this, like creating one thing at a time. And, what is the role of a magazine? It's like you have a point of view around the world. You have features, you have consistent behaviors that you're training people to come to you for. And when you start looking at that over time, you start to create an audience that when they consume your content, they get better or smarter or lean into a shared passion or, which is different than can I create an article to get an SEO link or something like that. So my curiosity here is, as you started to build that magazine, did it change how you thought about how the brand was going to show up long term? Like, did it almost force you to say, okay, what is the next 6 months, 9 months of my editorial calendar look like? And, how do I design the experiences around that? And you mentioned having holidays as a anchor. So obviously there's natural places to, kind of slot in. But beyond that, like, did that allow you to look farther out on the horizon than you may have otherwise.
Well, not exactly. The magazine served two purposes. Externally, it became a way for our customers to experience what it was like to shop at the fresh market just while they sat up there on the couches, right? And I'll get back to that point. Internally, it basically was a manifestation of the marketing plan, the annual marketing calendar.
Mhm. Yeah.
But it showed up as a magazine, and we wanted it to reflect, you know, how it would feel if you walked in the store and you went into from the time you walked in the store and encountered our magnificent floral displays from the second you walk in to the produce as you go in and shop counterclockwise, and you then end up in the meat section and the bakery section and the wine and all that. And so that's how the magazine was organized chronologically as you went through it, page by page, paginated. I also wanted it to be one of the world's best or America's best, food and wine type magazines. I wanted it to give the experience that would be so immersive with the world's best photography, the world's best storytelling about the products that, you would just want to, when it came in the door, to sit down and spend a half hour, an hour with it. And that's what my wife did. I found her to get very excited with that magazine. We wanted to feature our employees under food, folks, and fun, and feature them in the magazine and let them tell the story of why we, grind our beef fresh every day, and how we age our steaks 14 days, and all the things that made the product and where it came from, and all the things that made each one of these products, whether they were berries or our seafood or, our prime steaks, to tell that story to the person that, you were privileged enough to get to sit down and spend a half hour. Think about spend a half hour, 45 minutes versus 2 seconds or a millisecond on the display ad. Are you kidding me? It's an enormous opportunity. And so I knew when I got there, believe it or not, the creative team, we had an in-house creative team, they were incredibly talented people in that in-house creative team. Brian Bowers, our creative director, this guy was so brilliant and so talented, and all the art directors, and they were doing beautiful work. It just didn't have the strategic foundation and the messaging and the discipline, all the things you just talked about, built around that as the core. So we created a magazine. Each month it would feature, the special occasion or the monthly promotions, the specials, then mail that to 2 million people in our trade area. Remember, this was during the COVID, so people were stuck at home.
Oh, yeah.
Or we wanted them to experience shopping at. But what we also did was we began to use QR codes. And so while you were sitting on your couch and you couldn't go to the store, you saw something you really liked, you were able to use a QR code that will link directly to our Instacart account and allow our customers to shop online and have those products delivered. That innovation of the magazine, and then from there, all with really tight copy and storytelling pictures. So then that became the content engine for every piece of communication that we produce at the Fresh Market. So the actual in-store ad signage was the same creative and the same storytelling as the magazine. The social media posts and the creative and the images and the storytelling from the creative posts were the stories that were in the magazine. Our 300 micro influencers were given the magazine as a brief, and that's what they posted about in social media. So every touch point, our loyalty program offers were what you saw in the magazine. So the magazine created a content engine and a flywheel so that every image, every outdoor ads were images from the magazine.
Yeah.
So every touch point, text messages, everything came from that magazine and still does. And so it makes it incredibly efficient, but incredibly on message. And because we didn't have huge budgets, well, every impression counted, and every impression reinforced and was a force multiplier for every other impression. And that really was a secret. So for that, I was awarded the CMO Innovator of the Year
Love it.
by the Millennial Alliance. So people were beginning to recognize the work we were doing at the Fresh Market.
It's interesting in the content space, which, demand far outweighed the supply over time. So people, just splintered away. You had teams working on different parts of that experience. Yeah, I got an email team and a social team and a brand team and a TV. And increasingly those things were operating independently, which is a huge problem. So now what we're seeing and what we're trying to enable with brands is exactly what you described, which is how do you create momentum across channels? And so starting to think of what is my big idea? Like, what is my IP and how does my content show up? Like, how am I scaling that experience and that relationship? And if you're doing that in a fragmented or asset-based approach, like it ain't going to fly, especially in this world. And you've demonstrated that, which is really cool.
The other thing it gives you as a CMO is the ability to measure the impact and to control the impact of the messaging so you don't lose control. So I absolutely 100% had complete confidence that everything we were doing was being done efficiently and effectively and was on message. And I was never worried about being off message or off brand.
Yeah, which is incredible. And did that help with this concept of attribution, which is, man, this stuff's hard to measure in general, and that's a universal issue. But as you started to look at the scale, was it easier to then wrap your head around measuring the impact holistically, or is it just as hard?
Well, again, you put the measurements in place. We get alignment with the executive team and the board as to what the key KPIs are, and you report on it on a weekly basis, daily basis, a monthly basis, quarterly basis. And so we saw the impact in our awareness scores. We saw the impact in our traffic and sales. You saw the impact in terms of, loyalty members. We went from, after we launched our loyalty program, we achieved over 1 million members in 7 months. It took Facebook over 10 months to get to 1 million. There's the tracking data. And then inherently, there's the consumer research as well. So the qualitative focus groups, getting feedback from the customers, and just in general, the word of mouth. So the word of mouth when customers walk in the doors with the magazines in their hand and they want to meet the employees that are featured in the magazine.
Love that. Yeah.
Celebrities
Yeah.
to their local communities. And then the field, the folks in the stores are saying how much they love the marketing. They love the magazine. The people that are watching our live stream, shopping shows, talk about it to the cashiers and the store managers. So there's an overall kind of network effect of it all.
Yeah. I mean, what you're doing is creating that community and that passion, and you're involving the employees who are actually delivering that last mile service is part of the DNA. So while I might be like maybe an hourly employee, I have purpose, right? It's not, my purpose isn't to like check somebody out at checkout line. It's like, how do I make this experience really special in the same way that, you brought Disney up, it's the same responsibility of like, people are spending their time here. Like, let me play a role in bringing joy and anticipation to their day, which I think is really cool.
Disney, they call the employee, and I was a Disney employee during those times at ABC. The employees are called cast members. So they're not called employees because everybody's on, always on, and then they are performing to give their customers the most entertaining, enjoyable experience that they can.
Yeah. And, just reframing that for people changes. Do I jump out of bed and go to work, or is this like, damn, I don't want to have like dark and I don't want to it's cold out. I just want to stay in bed.
Bigger Disney, multi-billion-dollar, I play a part in delivering the magical experience that people expect, and I'm a part of it.
Yeah. And I think that's important for virtually any industry where you're thinking about like, when you have a clear purpose and a vision and, you strip everything down to exactly why we exist and what role we play in people's lives and the role that individuals in the company play in that outcome, whether you're B2B or B2C, like having that level of visibility into why you matter is really important. And, now that we're starting to think about delivering experiences differently, we can't lose that, right? So it's like, okay, why is somebody going to, work a couple extra hours or put in that energy versus like do a task and move on with their day. It's because of the purpose, right? If they don't know what they're doing and why, and they just have a list of tasks, or they're tucked into a department that has no visibility into the overall vision and mission, that's a problem. So I think you did a fantastic job of kind of tying those knots. My question there would,
For marketing to assume the leadership role in being able to communicate that to the employees, not
yeah,
just the consumers. So, you have an internal marketing job as well to uplift what the brand is about, to uplift and empower the customer, the employees with great storytelling
yeah,
that they're able to very easily repeat to the customers at the point of sale in the stores or wherever they encounter them. So, and if you are able to clearly and concisely and simply create, what the brand's all about and what they're trying to do, then again, you get all these thousands or tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people that work for your company also being, the best marketer that they can be, which is the old, you know, saying word of mouth, the best form of advertising. So how do you that's again something very important as you just articulated it. How do you, create an environment or a message or access for your own employees to help you market your brand?
yeah. And, on the flip side, if you don't do that, then, this is all bullshit, right? Because you're talking about an experience that doesn't exist, or you're marketing an experience that doesn't exist. So this concept of being able to, tell stories that allow them to be retold, right? Involving customers and bringing leadership to the market. And to your point, which you've brought up over and over again, which is make sure that you know your customers and why and how they're responding to these stories, and how it's moving through into those markets. Like, are we seeing lift because of the consistency and how dialed into these customer relationships we are, and the level of care? And we're talking from a marketing standpoint, but this impacts everything, right? Like, it's your employee satisfaction, your retention rates, if people want to come work for you or not, if customers, want to be loyal to your brand and think about, like, why would I shop here, go out of my way? And, is this truly joy, or is this some marketing message that Kevin spun up? But, it only comes true if everybody believes the stories that you tell. So telling those stories consistently in all of those different places, it's the difference between success and failure. And clearly you nailed that. You mentioned the uplift in the brand. As you started to see through those surveys and measurement, and then you started to tick from the basement to the penthouse, was there a revenue correlation? Like, did you see that come back directly? Because, I asked the question, there's a perception that some of these soft metrics are fine, but do the direct response stuff, and doing one without the other is problematic. So I'd love to understand if there was a direct impact of revenue to brand lift and favorability.
Yeah, we saw the first couple of years, double digit, higher than double digit, sometimes 20% now. Remember, this was during COVID. So there was a COVID lift across the industry for everyone.
You guys are
So
selling a ton of toilet paper, I bet.
well, we did, of course, we had very sophisticated, financial analysis and things. So we saw that we were outperforming the industry over and above like 5 or 10% what the industry was doing from the COVID lift, which was fantastic for us
Yeah, yeah,
for a couple of years. The other thing we saw was that one of the things we focused on was our ecom business. Ecom was continuing to grow across the board. We were way underdeveloped for ecom. And because our audience, our customers were primarily baby boomers, older, primarily women, 45, 50-ish and above, love to shop in the stores, love to read emails, higher income.
Mhm.
And, we did have an opportunity to broaden our reach to younger customers. Everybody wanted to reach millennials, ultimately Gen Zs in the last couple of years. So we commissioned Deloitte to do a survey on our e-commerce customers and compare them to our existing baby boomers. And we found something really amazing. And that is, e-commerce customers are a lot younger. They're male and female. They have high incomes as well. They really care about the story behind the food,
Mhm.
where it comes from. If you're a purpose-driven organization, they loved all the items and the services, quick meals, fresh meals that we offered, good prices, but they wouldn't shop at the fresh market because they had other priorities. They had smaller kids and family, and they were addicted to Amazon. They just couldn't get these people to come into the store. Whereas the older, ladies who were used to shopping, spending their time enjoying the shopping experience at the fresh market, didn't want to order their food from e-com. They wanted to go in the store and experience the fresh market. And so once we really understood, we called our base customer Susan. We called our younger e-commerce customer Jesse. And so once we really dug deep into Jesse doesn't read emails. Anybody under 30 don't read emails. They're
Yeah.
DMing like crazy. All these millions and millions of emails we're sending, they're not reading those things.
Yeah.
So we really focused on what their needs were and how they engage with the fresh market and focused on them. So we saw an enormous growth. We were able to track, and we focused on creating a new marketing platform for them called based on the media that they engaged with, which was TikTok and YouTube and all these videos. And so we launched a shoppable video platform with a partner as Fireworks from Silicon Valley. It had a platform that would allow us to create videos embedded into our emails, of which we sent over 20 million emails a week that would create the stories from the magazines while you're reading your weekly kind of circular email, and then be able to click right on and shop those emails. And then we also created a monthly live shopping show, fully produced in studio with host, live stream on that same platform. It created an interactive, very exciting kind of Martha Stewart show, but it was, as you said before, it was our original production.
Mhm.
And we found that, hundreds of thousands of customers, we would get tens of thousands, and the average live stream in the US gets about 25 viewers. These live streams were getting 10,000 viewers in a 1 hour period. And then in the replay, they would get hundreds of thousands of views. And so, those drove, and we were able to track our conversion from the folks that actually were clicking on the shoppable videos and the live stream shows, and 80% of them that were going to our e-commerce site for the first time ever.
Wow.
And so we saw a tremendous increase in our e-com business, which grew from less than $5 million to over $100 million that first year. And the last year, e-com business, I think, continued that growth. That was from 2021 to 2022 at over a 30% clip in 2024.
Getting them Jessies in the house, huh?
Jesse's man on the house.
Yeah.
Very happy.
Yes. You bring up an interesting point, which is as we start to engage customers in different ways across different platforms, there's two learnings from that. One is, obviously, understanding how, taking the same idea and reimagining it for both the audience and the format and the platform. And then two, the way these platforms work are starting to change. You hear a lot about this like zero click environment where, whether it's Google or TikTok or LinkedIn and the B2B world, there's like a deprioritization of brands that are inserting links that cause you to leave the platform, right? Where shoppable videos is a little bit of a way around that. But it's also this fact that in the past, we had these like very clear, customer journeys where you'd be like, okay, I'm going to capture you here in Google and then bring you in. And now those environments are changing, right? Because now, Google wants you to stay in Google. If you go into these other modern, like, Perplexity or ChatGPT, they want you to stay in those environments, as well as LinkedIn wants you to stay in LinkedIn. So they're fighting. And, even in our own world, like I was observing this when I was sharing links to the podcast. I was like, man, where did all my impressions go? Because when I didn't do that, it was through the roof tons of engagement. I drop a link in, 90% of my engagement dropped away. So starting to reimagine and saying, okay, the job maybe isn't like moving people through in this really clean way. It's how do I, start creating experiences in all these places that ladder up to who I am. So no matter where I'm presenting it, that is almost like distributed influence and even staying in those platforms versus assuming everything is going to get a click back.
Yeah.
So it's a different way to think versus the classic move people from one gate to the next. Like when those gates get locked,
Yeah.
yeah, you're in trouble, right?
So that's one way that AI can help, and that's really has directly relates to the company that I serve now on the advisory board, Scrollmark AI, and it's SCROLL Marked, a Silicon Valley AI based startup focused on connected commerce, which is being able to create commerce where within the platforms that you already are,
Mm.
and lowly platform. And so you know, there are over 6 billion text messages a day. There's over 10 billion emails, and there's billions and billions of DMs every day.
Mhm.
And so it provides you with the opportunity to engage with your customer with what I call one of the most powerful points there is, which is while they're in their DM and they're really engaged and they're sending signals and messages based on those conversations, they show interest. It's able to intercept and, as a sales assistant, help the customer by suggesting, more information, doing the videos, signing them up for emails, and becoming an actual value-added assistant and a commerce platform while you're in your social platforms within your DM. So it's really a very exciting use of an agentic AI application.
Yeah. It's so important as we think of these commerce experiences, like how do you shorten those paths or reimagine, those paths or those experiences, or if and where people buy these platforms are behaving and making money. And like as a brand, that doesn't mean you stick your head in the sand and you keep behaving in the same way, but it also doesn't mean you move away from it. It's like, how do we embrace this world? And it comes back to some of the stuff at the start, which is, how do you create those experiences and brand love and put the customer at the center and make their life easier and better and have some unique value proposition that people come to? Because in a world where products and services can be easily commoditized and even copied, and then, it's like somebody's around the corner with something similar or cheaper. And if that's where you're competing, you're kind of screwed, right? So instead of saying, how do I invest in the relationship that I have with customers so they prefer me, they come to me, they, see me as viable in their world, and then catering those messages across individual platforms and, the Jessies versus Susans, like what they're going to experience and react to are different. So the way to simplify that world through our lens is, what are the pillars and the conversations and why does that ladder up to our brand purpose? Everything that you described, documenting that. And when you do, all of these AI tools become magic, right? Because now you're like, oh, wow, I can like understand the conversation in real life. I can come up with these really cool ideas and then I can scale them in different ways, in different formats. And I could adjust it for Jesse versus Susan and starting to build that infrastructure and that muscle, right? So instead of just trying to do things one at a time, now I'm trying to build an ecosystem and return value back to the business, which is really, really important.
Mhm.
And
And
even,
that's a big terrace you just described there, Brad. So you really have to, experiment. There's a lot of testing and learning, and you have to have the right tools to do the right job as you're, again, describing what you want the AI to do. And it really gets you to that like magical holy grail of personalization,
yeah,
like hyper post personalization. So, for example, we had over 2 million members of our loyalty program at Fresh Market. Inherently, of course, by definition, you know exactly what their purchase behavior is. You know how many times they come in the store, you know what they buy, you know how much they spend when they come back. But what do you do with all that data? Can you literally send 2 different customized emails every day to those folks? So with AI and some of the AI tools, like a scroll mart, I'm not trying to do too much of a commercial on them, provides you with the ability to do that. to provide hyper personalization to those customers to fit their, their needs.
Yeah.
And that's not possible at all, not even close, with just doing it the old fashioned way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the old fashioned way, we've been discussing personalization. I mean, you've been in a lot of the same conferences that I've been at, and we've been talking about it for years and years and years,
Yeah.
but the content was never there to actually do it. Like there's all these systems that were in place, but okay, what about the message that's actually going to get somebody to respond and personalize? Like, so now that this universe
I've
is,
come up with this term, and
yeah.
I often come up with
And
all things.
yep. Yep.
But I think, as I've been thinking about this, is again, personalization at the point of peak engagement. That's the holy grail,
Yeah.
So if you can engage, a customer at the point, it's like car companies, they do years of advertising because they know the sales cycle is for 3 to 4 years, 5 years before you buy a new car. But you can't really, stretch to convince somebody to buy a car, but run an ad the day they're going to buy the car.
Yep.
So in this case, if you can find a customer who's really interested at that peak, at that point where they're really looking to buy, and personalize that message and tell your story and differentiate your product and do all that, those things you wanted to do with the right type of content tailored to that platform, that's the holy grail
Yeah.
to create the conversion and the attribution you need in order to develop the ROI that you're going to need to take to your boss and take to the executive team and the board to justify the reinvestment in your programs.
Yeah. That's a great kind of bow to wrap this up. I mean, I think, as we look at all of the principles that you described, it's really putting the customer sort of back at the center. It simplifies all of the noise. And then it's saying, okay, what's our job? Our job is to really understand and create affinity with these people, and have a unique value prop and a passion-led brand or approach that leans into their lifestyle. In this case, what's for dinner? In a B2B SaaS, it might be, oh my God, how do I create lead gen? It's the same mindset, right? Like
At the moment that CMO is saying, man, I really need something to, for AI that'll help my department, and bing, all of a sudden, your thing shows up
Yeah.
when, someone's on LinkedIn discussing that with someone else that they care and they have value with.
Yeah.
So how can you be there with the right message and the right value prop and use case for that customer, that B2B partner?
Awesome. Kevin, any final words of wisdom as we wrap here?
Yeah, well, this was terrific, and you're awesome. Content is king. Okay.
Keep going.
Insights,
You're on fire. Yeah.
your organization, and then really, be creative. Own the customer, own the brand, the health of the brand, the voice of the customer, the health of the brand, be creative. And most importantly, jump into the deep end of the pool and start swimming. You've got to learn this stuff by trial and error, but use the fundamentals of marketing, branding as your guiding light, as your North Star. And then I think you can be very successful.
Amazing. Yeah. It's always a good reminder that we're all very experienced in our career, but come in with an open mind and curiosity. And, we are an expert in marketing and brand development and in customer engagement, but we're not an expert in AI. So let's take everything we know and explore with curiosity. And it's exciting if you do that. If you're trying to posture and pretend like, it's not, and you're going to fail. Right. So it's really starting to approach this moment, which is very different than many of the moments in any of our careers, with a curiosity in collaboration, and find people you trust and you like, and share stuff, right? And from there, you can really start to learn and grow in ways that you couldn't otherwise. So
here's the other thing is, again, you're still the leader, and remember my definition of AI is that you teach the machines. Don't be intimidated by the machines, because without you, and I think this is the point you were making earlier, they really can't do anything.
Okay.
And so don't be subservient to the machine, have the machine be subservient to your brand, your vision, of your company. You can go from there. So I think that's very important. So don't be intimidated. I've sat in a lot of, not a lot, but a few Silicon Valley tech firms and with all the programmers, and we've been at their whiteboards, and what they want is the vision. They want your vision of what you want to accomplish. And then they build the machines and the technologies, capabilities around that. That's so important.
Mhm.
And so you don't have to be in the boardrooms and writing on the boards, but with the tools that you do decide to explore, it's clearly your vision and you're defining, what you need to have that technology help you do. This is so important. And if you stick with that, you'll get the best results.
Amazing. Well, thank you. This has been fantastic, Kevin. A wealth of knowledge, not surprisingly, really helped to simplify where we're going and where we are today. So really appreciate the insight and thanks for joining us.
Okay. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
You too.
Thank you for listening to Content Disrupted, brought to you by Skyward. To stay up to date on the latest ideas and insights in brand building and content marketing, visit our website at skyward.com. That's skyword.com. Join us for our next episode, where we'll continue to challenge marketing norms and inspire you with fresh strategies for growing business through brand storytelling.